Julie, you're a wife, mom, you're the founder of Three Keys Investments, speaker, host of the Conscious Investor podcast, performance coach, and mountain bike adventurer, and so much more. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
And Erik, it's super great to be here with you. Loving your podcast and really excited to be here.
Oh, thank you so much. I'd like to kick things off by going back a bit. Like, where did you grow up? What was childhood like for you?
Oh, wow. Way back when. Well, I grew up in a place called Modesto, California. And I say that because like George Lucas is from there, and it's kind of like famous Gallo Winery is based there. Lots of really cool things. What's interesting is that a lot of people leave. So it's where a lot of people are from. It's a great community, very solid people and everything. But yeah, I grew up in that town was like 70,000 people, and now it's huge. And I mean, like it's urban sprawl and everything. But it's interesting watching that grow as I grew up and watching my neighborhood mature and go from like literally orchards and vineyards to getting like developed into single family homes.
Wow.
So that was that was actually a very formative part of my life because it was at a time when I could go out and adventure and climb around these houses on my own and just play basically in all of this construction debris. And it was safe and it was super fun. And I have 3 older brothers. That's another part of my story that really shapes like who I am. I always say like there's a reason why I am the way I am. Like I didn't have any girls in my house. I had to, really bottom of the pile, 3 older brothers. That's going to shape somebody.
Yeah. Oh man, it sounds just like the city I grew up in was very much the same. It was a lot of orchards everywhere. I had to cut through the orchard to get to school, and now it's just like filled with houses everywhere. And it's just crazy to go back to the hometown I grew up in.
Yeah, it's really wild.
In your family, though, you've had like multiple generations of family that have been involved in real estate. Like, who was the one in your family that started real estate?
This is really cool. So my great grandpa, Gramps, as we affectionately, I always called him, right? He was an entrepreneur at heart, and he worked in sales for Pepsi Cola, and he kind of did all these like different eclectic things. And then finally he ends up moving my mom when she's a senior in high school from San Diego, California to Fresno, California.
Okay.
Which is just like, you just don't go from living in the ocean to a Central Valley that is landlocked, basically, right? And your senior year of high school and everything. So he does that, and I think it was for his Pepsi Cola, his job in management at Pepsi Cola and sales and stuff. But ultimately, he ends up opening up a Wendy's franchise, which is really wild and weird. It was the very first one in California, and he's doing that gig, and the next thing you know, he's getting into real estate. Residential real estate sales, and he's liking it. And my dad looked to my grandpa as a role model, and so my dad went and worked at the Wendy's and helped out there, and then my dad was like a construction manager and did these different things. And the next thing you know my dad's going to be an entrepreneur. Grandpa's in real estate. Dad moves to Modesto with my mom, and they're married, they've got a few kids, and they moved to Modesto, and they decide to open up a sandwich shop. And then my dad takes this trip, and this is where it's really going to resonate with people. My dad's working his butt off, and for this sandwich shop, I mean, I don't know, I wasn't born yet, but he made all the stained glass chandeliers and things for this, and he created his own route to actually like sub out to like little like gas stations and things like that. Wow. There is a point to this. He ends up, they're pregnant with number 4, me, and they go to a lake, and they used to sail all the time, he and my mom, and they sold the sailboat for one of the kids. Sometimes you do that when you have hospital bills.
Totally.
So anyhow, they're at this lake and they're relaxing, and my dad realizes that he hasn't relaxed and got away, and he got some clarity. And in that moment, he's like, man, Chan, my grandpa, like he's doing this real estate thing, and he starts taking real estate classes at night. And I'm born, and dad goes into residential real estate sales in the 70s. Okay. Not a good time to go into real estate, y'all. It's awesome. Like going into real estate in 2008, which is what my husband did after we had our son.
Oh no. So
yeah,
funny.
So that's really like the genesis of like the family part of it. And so I mean, here I am, it's all I knew. I didn't know anything else because my dad was always in residential real estate. My mom was a school teacher at our private Christian school where we went to school. And so it was just like this interesting, watching the roller coaster of economics, of feast or famine,
Sure.
of residential real estate sales, having mom's consistency as a teacher. And then I turn into this like split personality where I become both of my mom and dad. And I like graduate college early and start becoming a public school teacher at age 22, only to go into real estate sales not too long after that.
Wow. For you, when you left that teaching job and went into real estate, what was that transition like for you? Like, what were you just covered in fear, like going, oh my gosh, am I going to make this work? Or was there, they basically set the big like level that you needed to get to in life and you were like, I got to get there? Or was it, what fear kind of was going through your mind in that moment?
Erik, that's a great question. Really what happened was I had a mortgage because my dad had, I really was thinking about this recently, and Arnold Schwarzenegger changed my life.
Really?
This sounds crazy. He was
That's
the
awesome.
governor of like they impeached the governor. He ends up becoming the governor of California at the same time that I am now a public school teacher making $27,000. Okay. Like I just pulled out
Not
my
per month. Let's
contract
make sure
recently.
that people know that. That's not a per month.
That is not monthly, y'all. That was like for the whole time. So here I am making $27,000, and we get this $10,000 bonus because Arnold had like signed this thing into effect. It was to incentivize teachers and their test performance. Now, listen, I'm just not going to argue about what side anybody's on this. I can just say that it literally changed my life because I got this $10,000 bonus, and my dad's like, hey, this is the equity escalator, and taught me about equity because I still didn't understand all the real estate concepts. And I bought my first home, and then I rented out a room, and then I'm still teaching. Then they start handing out pink slips. And I was like, wait. I'm working for the government. I'm safe. Like, I'm going to have a pension. Like, no, government jobs don't go away. I'm safe. And I realized that I wasn't safe. And I'd always wanted to follow my dad's footsteps. Always wanted to go into real estate. And now I didn't want to do it because it didn't feel safe and secure.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, if my government job's not safe and secure, and I'm single and I've got a mortgage payment, I might as well go live life on my own and call my own shots.
Yeah.
And so I started taking real estate classes on my own online, at night, very much like my dad. Right. So it's interesting, but I made so much money. It was like more money than I'm just like, it was so productive and so successful when I left teaching. And it was scary, it was absolutely terrifying, but I'm like, well, I could get pink slips. So really, what's the difference? Like, there's no security this side of heaven. So
totally.
I'm gonna err on that side and bet on myself. And it went great until I started realizing that who I was growing into wasn't who I wanted. And this is before we had, I think podcasts were around, but they weren't prevalent. YouTube was not around, and like we didn't have the access that we have now to the support and the ecosystem. And so it was kind of like, this isn't who I want to grow into, and I don't know how to stop this, but I know that this is a train wreck waiting to happen. And so I ended up going back into education. And I'm glad that I did. I incubated longer, continued, because my heart is always to serve others and to help people in the world. And I was able to do that in residential sales. But then it's just like this beautiful thing to be able to humbly, because it takes humility to come and go from a profession.
Totally.
If you haven't done it, it takes a lot of humility and courage to leave and say, peace out, y'all. I'm going to this new adventure, because you're probably excited about it. And then to go back and be like, hey, yeah, so got any jobs?
I have done that before. Oh, man.
Right. And it does take humility, but it's the best thing. It's worked out really perfectly because ultimately, fast forward, we had some rentals and that just felt vulnerable. And obviously I say I'm a woman, I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I was a teacher, therefore I am a qualified control freak.
Okay. That's awesome.
So And I can say that. Most people won't say that, but I can because I'm saying it about myself. And so the whole single family felt really vulnerable. And so we sold it off and we were sitting on the money. And that's when God showed me apartment syndication and how to invest in real estate in a different way where my investors can be hands-free, I can be active, and I can be passive. It just had so many opportunities, and it has a business plan. So I'm like, I'm safe, I'm secure, and I can support other people in this way. And I believe people need to be able to, kind of like Joseph in Egypt, be able to go and fill their storehouses so that they can support others in difficult times. And so I love what I do. It's really a full circle moment of, following mom and dad in two very different career paths. But I will say this, when you trust God with your path and you don't question it, you're not like, no, I'm going to go the safe route. When you take the route of faith, you take the route of adventure and it comes together in this way that you could never have brought it together before on your own ever. I could never have predicted that my two careers and my love and passion of personal development and mindset would be fused together into a cord of 3 strands.
Come on. I love this. This is so good. I mean, you're the founder of 3 Keys Investments, which is where you're getting into, like, you're now doing investing, you're coaching. For those who don't know, what is 3 Keys Investments? What are those 3 keys? How did all that come together?
3 Keys Investments is, and I've got like little keys. People give me keys all around. So my grandpa, it's a nod to some really important things. And 3 is my favorite number at this point in life, 100 million %. But 3 is a nod to thank you, God. God is the Trinity, the Father, Son, the Holy Ghost. So I want to incorporate my faith into, even subtly, into my business. It's just a reminder, that's the anchor of all things. I'm also 3rd generation in real estate. So that's pretty cool. That's the number 3.
Come on.
And then Gramps used to always say, the key is, and so that's where I got the keys. But ultimately, and I'm really getting into the nuances, but I do like deeper things. When you look at and go to the website, 3keys, plural, investments.com, you'll see a bird cage and you'll see a bird on top of a bird. And really, I wanted to have the bird have the keys, 3 keys hanging out of the bill, out of its beak. And the concept is that most of us are living these caged lives and we're not living to the fullest potential that God created us for. And so we're just stuck inside this cage and we're locked in there. And, we have so much to contribute. We are created for so much more, and yet we stay inside the cage. And so 3 Keys is all about helping people through investing and through high performance coaching, release himself, like get out of the cage and live the life God called you to.
I love that. And you know what I was wondering about the bird cage and the keys. So like, what are the ties here? There's got to be something behind it. I love that. So good.
There are big, deep ties there. Yeah.
That is awesome. I mean, in the world of like apartment and housing markets and stuff like that, our apartments, at least in our area up here in Coeur D'Alene and probably where you're at, it's kind of booming. You were kind of saying like, apartments was almost like a closely kept secret in your family for a while is what I was reading on your website, which is interesting. But how is apartment investing going right now? And what does the housing market look like as we head into 2023?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, so the problem is that I was in residential sales and so we knew nothing about apartment investing. So just like, lots of contractors are really great at building other people's houses, but not their own. A lot of people in residential sales are really great at helping people buy and sell houses, but they don't actually invest. And so they miss out on this huge opportunity. And going back into all of history, just think historically, as far back as you can remember, go back to ancient times, being a landowner, owning real estate is always an anchor in the foundation of building wealth. And we can't be afraid to build wealth. Wealth is not something that is, and if you're afraid of building wealth, then we got like money mindset. You got to think about, why am I thinking this way about money? Because God is like, and I'm going to go down this path, like God just blesses us so much. And I think about all the things that he provided people throughout the Old Testament and the New Testament. And I'm just like, he made beautiful things.
Yeah.
I mean, like King David lived in this gorgeous palace. It's like Grant Cardone had nothing on King David. Okay.
Right. Totally.
I'm thinking God is not like wealth is horrible. It's what are you doing with your wealth? And so honestly, I want to help people grow and build their wealth because, that way they can be supportive and generous. But when I learned about apartment investing, a lot of people call it multifamily investing, and then that gets confusing if you're not in the industry. That's like industry terms, right?
Sure.
But it's such a powerful way for people to grow their wealth, and you can do it passively. You can invest, and you don't have to worry about the tenants and the business plan and construction or anything like that. You invest passively, just like you trust somebody with your 401k money. And trust me, you probably don't look at the statements and you have no idea what's going on. This will grow your money in a powerful way. I'm bullish on real estate, and I know that I am, but I've also experienced the power of real estate. And as I look into the coming year, I am absolutely excited about where we are in the market with interest rates rising and prices softening. And we see a lot of loans that were a lot of people that were similar to 2008 who are just looking to make a quick dollar.
Sure. Yeah.
Those people are going to get flushed out of the system real fast. And that's actually when it's really critical that, companies like Three Keys Investments are there available with their investors lined up so that we can purchase that, not because we're greedy and we're mean, but we want to make sure and ensure that the quality and care for the residents that are living there remains consistent and steady, or more likely improves, right? Yeah. And so if we can go in there and over the next couple of years, the goal is, to kind of do a rescue mission of sorts.
Come on. That's awesome. And when people want to get into investing with you, what's that process look like? What's the life cycle of an investment actually look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. Also, you're full of great questions, aren't you? So the initial thing is we need to get on a phone call. So this is a two-way street. We actually don't receive everyone as an investor. Not everyone fits our investor profile. And we need to know that. Just like an investor might hop on a phone call with me and say, you know what, I don't really want to work with Three Keys Investments. Well, we might actually say the same things about potential investors. So we always want to make sure that investors are people that we can serve and support. So we like to hop on a phone call and we like to talk with you about, your risk threshold, your profile, like, what are your goals? Are you investing with liquid cash? Are you investing through a self-directed IRA of sorts where you aren't even going to touch it till you're 59 and a half anyway? So let's talk about the moving parts here, and let's set up a plan so that you can make your first investment, or maybe your 10th, 11th, whatever it is. Right. So that is always like the foundational step. And then we're just like, so my podcast, The Conscious Investor, really does represent Three Keys Investments very well, because we're very intentional about everything, including the deals that we present to our investors. But by nature of knowing who our investors are and knowing what their goals are, now we can decide what kind of opportunities we are looking for. So for example, I have this year, I had 3 different offerings for my investors, and they were all very different offerings. One produced cash flow. We just closed on it yesterday, 123 units in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And that's going to produce cash flow starting January 15th. Done. You will get cash flow from that. We'll double your money in 5 years, and you're going to get cash flow on a quarterly basis based upon your investment amount. We also have a ground up development deal. You're not going to see a dime of it for 2 years. Okay. So you can see that, like, you're going to see anything because we're developing, we're building it. So you can see that we need to understand what people's goals are so we can align it. But I actually went after this Minneapolis opportunity because I knew what kind of investors I had, and I knew what their needs were. And so it was like, okay, I know who I can call and reach out to, who I want to partner with. I know, like, and trust, and have a relationship with. And so that allows me, knowing my investors, to be able to, really look and scrutinize opportunities. But really, we're looking at, right now we're looking at 5-year holds. Okay. And so your money is locked up for 5 years. Most people, that's really not going to be a big deal, because most people, that money was supposed to be growing in some capacity. Maybe it was growing on Wall Street. Maybe it was growing in a 401k. Maybe it was, it was somewhere trying to grow. We're just expediting that growth process. And most people don't know they can do this.
Yeah, I had no idea until I started researching what you do. That's awesome. That's awesome. I want to jump over to your podcast though, because this is such a great show. People need to be listening to this. It's actually ranked in the top 1.5% of all podcasts globally, which is amazing. You've done well over 300 episodes. So first, congratulations on the success of this thing.
Thank you.
But when you decided to start podcasting, what was the objective behind it? Like, and how has podcasting helped you in your business?
Golly. Gosh, I wish you and I could just record like an hour and swap answers to this question, because we didn't do that when you were on my podcast. So I initially launched my podcast because I live further north in Idaho than Erik does. Yeah. I am a Canadian, basically. I live in a town of 2,500 people, and I wanted to get involved in apartment syndication. And it's a team sport. You don't go and buy a multi-million-dollar apartment complex by yourself. And I certainly wouldn't do that, because I did not have experience on that scale at that time. And so that would not have been responsible for my investor base, right?
Sure.
So I'm like, what's the genius thing to do? Instead of, and this doesn't matter if this is you in podcasting, whatever it is, we all face roadblocks and setbacks in what we want to accomplish. So you can apply this to anything. I could have just said, oh, boohoo, poor me. I'm a girl in a small town. I can't do this and be successful. I looked for all the opportunities. Well, meetup groups are 2.5 hours away. I'd have to go down to Coeur D'Alene or Spokane, Washington, and I was still teaching at the time. And so that was not really going to be an option on a school night unless people wanted a glazed over teacher the next day. So scrap that. so I started thinking about things, and I like a podcast. And then I was, imposter syndrome. Well, I'm not an expert. I'm new to this. Wait a second. I can interview everyone who knows. I can ask them any questions that I want. And now I'm serving them, which is my heart is to serve. So now I can serve them. I'm serving listeners, and I get to serve myself. I get something also. Everybody wins. My heart is happy. And that's where the podcast began, was at a point of, how do I grow within this industry where I don't have access like my colleagues do to different meetup groups and all these other, what I will say, privileged opportunities. I'm so jealous. They're always together and I'm not. It's a good jealousy, you guys. It's not a bad one. So that's where it started, and then it's grown now. Over the last almost 3 years and over 300 episodes, it's transitioned from me seeking those people to now let me serve limited partners, which are also passive investors, and let me bring on people so that they can level up their education. But consistently from March 2nd of 2020 to today, anytime you're listening to this, whatever day it is, there is always a Monday Mindset episode, because I believe you cannot accomplish or achieve anything this side of heaven if you are talking in your head about all the wrong things and discouraging yourself. So our mindset is really critical in accomplishing our success.
So good. And I started the podcast just because of because I wanted to serve myself, right? It was like, I just want to talk to these guys and see if I can get some information from them, right? And then I was like, I can't hold this all in. I got to let this out to the public, So that's why I started. Yeah, totally. In my walk-in closet for sure. But when it comes to podcasting, you've also earned money through your podcast on sponsorships and things like that. For anyone wanting to get sponsorships or bigger sponsorships, how do you go about approaching businesses to sponsor your podcast?
Understanding, and this is why it's really important to understand why, and this again extends well beyond, this is just good business, it's beyond podcasting, is who are you aiming to serve? And so understanding really clearly who is the listener, who's listening to my show. And why are they listening? What are they trying to gain from it? And then again, always looking for the win-win-win for everybody. Well, I think about what would benefit my listener. I don't want to just throw most people don't like advertisements. I don't want to just throw any advertisement in there. I want to make sure that it's something that is going to serve the listener. And so I really thought about what it is that would serve my listener. And then from there, I started thinking about, okay, these companies would offer things that would really elevate my listeners, and give them opportunities that they're looking for. They might not even know they're looking for it, but these are going to help them make that next step that they need in life. So that was the thinking behind it.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I know we're closing in on the end of the show here, but I love to finish my show by asking a fun question. I'm a big music guy, so I love to ask the question, like, what's a favorite band for you, a favorite type of music that you like to listen to?
Oh man, I'm a '90s girl. I mean, like, I think we always default to our formidable years, our teen years. So yeah. I think pretty much anything from the 90s makes me happy. My husband jokes because I don't keep track of bands very well.
Okay.
Or anything. I just know, ooh, I like that one.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is really kind of lame, but I do have playlists.
That's awesome.
I even have a mindset playlist, and it makes me happy.
So cool. Julie, this was such a great conversation. You brought so much knowledge and tips to everybody out there. I'm so honored to have you on the show. You're an absolute world changer. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day. I appreciate it.
Gosh, I've been looking forward to it all day. Thank you so much, Erik. It's been awesome.
Hey, thank you so much for checking out the show today. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to take a listen or a watch. It's truly an honor to be able to speak with such amazing guests, and I hope that they've made an impact on your life in some way, shape, or form. And you can do me one big favor that would be huge. Click that subscribe button, and then second favor, hit that share button. Thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate you. Keep changing the world. I believe in you.